and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. I am Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who is literally moving house today, and yet he's here in studio. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. Yes, I am. It's 95 degrees outside. My wife asked me before we came here, she dropped me off if I wanted to go back and get a shower and change clothes, and I said, nope. Daryl's just going to have to deal with all of this.
That's what I'm
and
doing.
Here we
right now.
are.
That's what I'm doing. But I really do salute your commitment to the Total Soccer Show and our 5 days a week schedule. Taking time out from literally moving all your possessions from one house to another.
Yeah.
Congratulations on the new house, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
To review the US Women's National Team's 2-2 Colombia and to preview USA versus Sweden, which is happening this Friday.
And you haven't lived until you've rewatched a U.S. Women's National Team game with your TV like ringed by boxes, because we had them all in one room, which is where the TV was, so I had to like create this little space that I could see through from the couch. But I've done that now, and it was exciting. It was definitely exciting.
So let's get to it.
Sure.
The US, it was a surprise not win.
Yep.
Let's put it that way. It was 2-2 against Colombia. Late equaliser, a free kick from Uzme, which Hope Solo's taking the blame on. Colombia took the lead. Free kick from Uzme, which Hope Solo's taking the blame on. So before we talk about everything else that happened in this game, I think we have to talk about Hope Solo because that's where the headlines are at.
I think we do. I think we should say, though, right off the bat, that the first Uzme goal, definitely Hope Solo's fault. The second one, it's a combination of Solo's fault, and it is a very well-taken free kick by Uzme, as long as she meant for it to be a free kick. If she was trying to cross, not as good. But if you watch the alternate angle on that one where it just bends and the pace she hits it at, it's a beautiful take, but it still probably could have been handled.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think maybe you're justified in saying that Hope Solo deserves the talking points for this one, and not in a great way.
Well, let's start with the first goal.
Sure.
Right? It's in the 26th minute, I believe. It's been the US attacking, right?
Yep.
Lots of crosses coming in from left and right of varying quality. We'll get to that later. It's a Rapinoe foul, free kick. Uzme steps up. There are two Colombian players on the edge of the wall blocking Hope Solo's view, and she tries to lean around the wall to get a better look at it, and Uzme, very cleverly, takes the free kick. Solo's off balance, the ball goes between her arms and between her legs, and it's an embarrassing goal. It's 1-0 Colombia.
And it's one where you can kind of watch it 40 different times and try to come up with 40 different reasons for it happening. I think you're right that it was maybe she was off balance from that lean, but I think in the end it's just a mistake. That's really all you can say is like maybe she took her eyes off, maybe she misread the trajectory, maybe the bounce through her, but I think it's just, it's just a mistake, and that sometimes happens.
But to me the mistake is the lean, right? To try and lean and look around the wall, that's the mistake. I mean, the last thing you want to be is off balance when someone's taking a free kick against you, especially Uzme, who they must have known, because I knew that it was a dangerous free kick taker, and I'm sure they've studied Colombia's women's national team a lot more than I have.
Yeah.
So, but the thing I was thinking is, one, is this an example of Hope Solo being too aggressive in a way? Like, that lean is like a little bit too confident, thinking I can get away with this, and then she doesn't get away with it. But also, two, what else could she have done if her view is obstructed by those two Colombian players who are deliberately blocking her view by standing next to the US defensive wall?
See, I don't think it was that she was being too aggressive, because to be aggressive would be to be screaming at your wall, get those people out of the way, or make sure we've got somebody there so I can see a little bit more.
Taking risk, I guess, is the word.
Yeah.
She's taking a risk by leaning around for a better look at the ball.
Yeah, and maybe it just comes down to, like, she hasn't been busy at all in that game, and so it's the first time that she's got to worry about things. She's got to worry about shots coming in on her.
Yeah.
So maybe she's just focused on like where the shot's going to be coming from and that wall, and less so about her own positioning, which is why I think the lean isn't particularly defensible. Because if you're going to lean, the idea would be that you want to stay where you are in the goal so that you can cover that near post. But if you're leaning, you're off balance anyway. So for me, it makes more sense just take that step to the right. Then maybe you can see the ball a little bit more cleanly. Then you can get across more easily because you've seen the ball coming as soon as it's struck.
So you're saying don't lean, just move, like shuffle to the right, and then at least you're still in like your position is off where you want it to be, but your body shape is what you want it to be.
Yeah, it's like if you're, to keep going with the home improvement, it's like if you're like painting on a ladder and you're leaning all the way to the right to paint with your brush.
Yeah.
You're getting to an area you couldn't otherwise get without moving the ladder, but by the same token,
you're about to fall off
the ladder. Exactly. So just move the ladder is what I'm saying, and then paint with ease. I would say though one other thing about this, it reminds me of how I feel like similar goalkeeping and the kicker on a football team, like those two positions, they strike me as very similar because if you do something incredible, it's incredible. If you hit that 70-yard field goal or 63-yard field goal, if you pull off an amazing save, but if you make a mistake, it's obvious that you made a mistake.
Yeah.
Same thing for the punter. Whereas like a cornerback, a lineman, you make a mistake, it's less obvious to the casual viewer, whereas a goalkeeper, if it goes between their legs and into the goal, everyone can see that one pretty clearly.
And then your Buffalo 66.
Yes. Is that a Vincent Gallo reference? Nicely done. More famous for other films, I'd say.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so I think... So really, I watched this a ton of different times, and all I can say, if you want to maybe let Hope Solo off a little bit, is you can make the argument that that free kick shouldn't have been conceded in the first place.
Yes, okay, so before we get to the second free kick goal, the late equaliser, this first goal, I would argue, is conceded because of all the changes that have been made to the US women's national team. And I would spotlight Ali Krieger not doing the same job as Kelly O'Hara at right back. And I would spotlight Megan Rapinoe sort of coming charging in with a tackle that I feel like she doesn't make, or at least isn't a foul, if she's got more games under her belt recently.
I agree.
More than none, which is what she's had
More than
recently.
none, yeah. Well, I agree to some extent, because I think that, yeah, she's a little more match fit than she can maybe close that space. But by the same token, she was routinely staying very wide on that left, regardless of whether or not the United States had the ball. And so it seemed like Colombia eventually figured that out and were able to pass their way through. And that free kick comes about. It comes about from a poor pass from Hope Solo, which I think is where your point about Ali Krieger comes about.
Yeah, let me get to this. So normally when Kelly O'Hara's right back, Hope Solo receives the ball. She gets the ball at her feet. Exactly in this sequence of play, I believe Becky Sauerbrunn wins the ball and plays it back to her, right? Solo receives the ball at her feet. The crowd start booing. That's what always happens, right? Yep. And then what you always see is Solo do that sort of arms down gesture, everybody calm down. And then she receives the ball, opens up, looks to her right, and Kelly O'Hara, who's normally at right back, is always there. And then she just plays the ball to feet, and the US play out of the back. This time you see her do that, right? You see her look up to play that pass because that's the rhythm, that's the habit they're in. And Ali Krieger's up the field because I'm not sure why. I guess it's just not in the rhythm of doing what they've been doing with the usual back four. Yeah. And so she has to go long, and it doesn't get to Crystal Dunn. It's intercepted.
Well, long is a relative term because she kicks it about 35 yards.
Yeah, she kicks it medium.
And I think that's because Krieger isn't where...
Not NFL standard.
No. But because Krieger isn't where she's supposed to be, if that's what you want to go with, then I think she has to take that extra touch Solo does. Yeah. And in doing, she allows Colombia to close her down. The Colombian forward closes her down, and then she kind of has to rush that kick, which is why I think it's poorly taken. But then it comes back in, it goes back out, it's partially cleared, and Colombia collect it on Colombia's right-hand side, the USA's left. And that's where that foul comes from. And it comes from the fact that Megan Rapinoe is so far wide that she has to come sprinting to try to close it down because Colombia do a quick 1-2. They exploit that gap between the central midfielders and Rapinoe, and then she has to come in and close. If you have another midfielder in there, if Mallory Pugh starts, she's tucked inside a bit more, and I don't think that they have that easy passing option.
Okay, well, I guess we're going to get to the second free kick goal later. Yeah. Because now we've started talking about personnel, we've got to talk about what Jill Ellis did in this game, because I still don't know how I feel about it. So we just talked about starting Krieger at right back, which I understand, right? She's a big part of the team, but hasn't been starting. Maybe this is the game to do it. She gave Megan Rapinoe, deliberately it seems, the first 30 minutes and then subbed her for Mallory Pugh, which is a really backwards way of doing it, to my thinking. Yep. We had, Carly Lloyd and Alex Morgan had a half each. We had Tobin Heath rested entirely. Julie Johnston understandably rested because she's still got that sore groin. Just so many changes. It seems like you could make an argument that the US never actually took this game seriously in terms of trying to win it, and therefore they don't deserve to win it.
Yeah, if anything, it seems like what Jill Ellis was trying to do was gauge Rapinoe's match fitness. Not just because she gave her 30 minutes and took her off, but because she gave her the first 30. And I think that's because she wants to see if she can handle the intensity of a team just starting off, rather than coming on for the last 30 when they're tired. It's in Manaus. It's not exactly the most hospitable climate. Yeah. So maybe she wanted to see how she handled those first 30, and I would venture to guess that she expected to be ahead. She expected we'll be 1-0, 2-0 up, we can pull Rapinoe off, now we've got the lead, then we can do what we want. And so to make that change at a time when the United States is now trailing, it changes up what you're trying to do a little bit.
But I think you've just maybe convinced me that it wasn't the worst idea, because it seems absolutely nonsensical, because it's not what teams normally do, right? They normally bring players return from injury, get the last 30 minutes, right, to ease back in. Maybe it was a better test of Megan Rapinoe to give her the first 30.
I'll pro and con it myself, is what I'll say. Because I'll say the pro argument is that
so I just want to say, just because it's not the traditional thing doesn't mean it's wrong. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, and that's why I say I'll give the pro and con, because I can see both sides of it. I can understand why you'd want to start her, again, for what I said, in that, to see how she does against teams that are fresh. But also you want to see...
It's different, right? The first 30 is very different to the last 30.
Very much so. But you also want to see if she can be the game changer for you. So that, say, you do elect to bring her off the bench when you go to the knockout rounds, maybe you can change your game up a little bit. Maybe, okay, no, her delivery is still perfect, but now we can emphasize that long ball cross if we're chasing a goal. So you can see if it can work. But by the flip side, it then means that you're basing your lineup on experimentation. And you're just seeing if this one thing works. And then if that one thing isn't working and you concede a goal, you're in a lot of trouble.
But, okay, here's the pro argument. The US still finished top of the group, right? If it wasn't for that late free kick equaliser, the US wins this game 2-1, and everyone says, "Oh, Jill Ellis experimented. Everybody got like a little run out. Players got rested. Manaus is a really tough place to go. It's so hot and humid." There's that there's that record of teams playing in Manaus in the Men's World Cup 2014, playing Manaus, and you would lose the next game, right? Didn't a lot of teams do that?
Yeah, it was something like it was a little confusing is the way they explained it, because it was either like they would win the next game but lose the game after that, or they would win, the winner of that game lost the next game.
Essentially, it was Manaus took it out of your legs, right? So after 2 games already, then Manaus, then the quarterfinals coming on Friday. Maybe there is some wisdom in doing all kinds of weird things in a game that you can afford to draw and still come top of the group.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that was what the players themselves were saying. Hope Solo said it, Carly Lloyd said it, that if you're going to make mistakes, if you're going to have to figure stuff out, better now than in the knockout round.
Yeah.
And so I think that makes sense to me. If we're talking about Manaus traditions, it's becoming an unfortunate tradition for U.S. national teams of conceding a late equalizer in Manaus. The men did it in 2014. The women have now done it this summer.
Oh, maybe we'll get third time lucky next time we go to Manaus.
Let's hope so.
Well, okay, so there's the good stuff in the middle to talk about with the US scoring.
Yeah.
But let's go to that late equaliser, which Colombia score.
Sure.
Uzme, there's a free kick on the right. She steps up, left-footed. I think she shapes like she's going to cross, and that fools most of the US defence and Hope Solo. Instead, she Michael Bradleys it. She goes YOLO, right? You only live once, let's shoot at goal.
Yep.
And she fires it at goal. It looks to me like Hope Solo just basically is again in the wrong position, jumps to punch it, sort of, I think it just grazes the top of her gloves and goes in.
Right.
And everybody looks at Hope Solo like, oh no.
Right. Well, except some people, I think, initially were like, oh, that's just an amazing free kick. There's nothing you can do about it. That's what Kate Margroff was pointing out. It is that. Like, yeah, it's so well hit. It's so well struck. And it is. Don't get me wrong. But I think part of that explains why Hope Solo made the mistake. Because I think she misjudges what the ball is going to do. Not necessarily like, is it a cross or is it a shot? But I think she misjudges how strongly hit it is, so how quickly it's moving. Because what it looks like to me is she jumps like at the wrong time, and so she's not meeting it like
too early.
Yeah, basically she's not meeting it when she should be. She's meeting it and then having to like flap at it as she's going down.
So she doesn't meet it at her apex.
Right, exactly. That's number one. But number two, I did think it was interesting that she seems, right as the free kick is being taken, she cheats towards it a little bit. She takes about maybe like a step and a half in the direction of the ball. Doesn't really move out towards like the line of defenders there, but she moves towards the goal or towards the ball. And that's enough, though, that if she stays where she is, she probably punches that clear or collects it cleanly. And instead, she's a little bit too close, so she's a little bit away from the center of the goal, so she doesn't punch it clear.
So I think we've picked up a thread here. With the first free kick, she's cheating by trying to look around the wall. With the second free kick, she's cheating. I think because it's a left-footed cross, it's going to be in-swinging. If it's a cross, you cheat off your line, you sort of get there first to this in-swinging cross, right? So maybe she's cheating in both times, thinking she can be cleverer and faster than everybody else, and both times she gets basically outmaneuvered by Uzme. If this was chess, this is Uzme being like, "Oh, you didn't see this, checkmate."
Well, I understand why Uzme had to like celebrate it as much as she did for that first goal. It makes sense. I think that was Colombia's first goal against the United States, or first goal in the Olympics.
First goal in this tournament.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, it's a big goal, don't get me wrong, but it is still that sort of like, you know that wasn't really you, right? Like, it wasn't like you hit this, on the first one, it wasn't like you hit this, like, perfect top corner free kick. Like,
the very first goal.
Kind of hit it right at Hope Solo and she dropped it to the goal. But the second one, I understand why you'd want to celebrate, but I also think with that second one, I was just going to say, I think it's because Hope Solo is so eager to make amends for that first mistake that I think she's like, not this time. I'm punching this clear. I'm stamping my authority on this game. It's in the side netting.
Doesn't she do that all the time, though? I think she's always cheating, and often it works out, but when it doesn't, it looks awful.
Actually, this is something I would say I would like to hear from people who watch Hope Solo on a regular basis, who watch the Women's League on a regular basis, because I've heard that. I've heard that she it gets a little bit too cocky, gets a little bit too self-assured, and then makes a mistake here and there. I've heard that maybe she's lost a step or two, which is a strange thing to say about a goalkeeper. But I can't say that with any confidence because I haven't watched her enough to know that one way or the other. So I'm curious if other people out there have an opinion on if Hope Solo is still the number one goalkeeper in the world and is, at the top of her game, or if maybe she's declined a little bit over the years.
And there may be a conversation, is she the number one US keeper, right? You've got, I haven't seen either of the other two keepers enough. It's Alyssa Nair and Ashlyn Harris. Ashlyn Harris is the alternate. Alyssa Nair is on the squad here, right, for the Olympics. I can't say I've seen enough of those keepers to do like a strengths and weakness comparison versus Hope Solo, so I don't even want to get into that.
Yeah, exactly, right, because I feel like it would be very disingenuous for us to be like, it's time for her to retire, it's time for her not to be the number one. There needs to be a competition. It's like, I don't know, it could have just been a bad game. It could have been hot. Who knows?
But even, it was definitely one of those things, right? It was definitely hot. Even if the US go on to win this tournament now, I feel like it at least opens the door a little bit for a future conversation about who is the US keeper post-Olympics, right? We would just assume Hope Solo, but a couple of mistakes, and I think suddenly that conversation starts. Not in this tournament, right? There's no way she gets dropped for the game against Sweden, for example.
No, definitely not. But I have to say, this one comes from my friends at Howler. They said, if that's how she swats at things, then Zika is a real concern for her. Which is kind of brutal, Howler, but still. I'm
not joining in on the Zika jokes. You and Howler Magazine can do that. That's fine.
That's fine. All right, well, then maybe we should talk about, the other players that were on the field for the USA, because there were several.
Because, US dominated this game, equalised, went ahead. If it wasn't for this last-minute free kick from Uzme, the US wins this game 2-1, and it's not the worst performance we've ever seen.
No, it's not.
Right?
And again, it's also an impressive performance, I would say, because it is. You have 5 to 6 lineup changes depending on how you want to look at it. So it's a lot of different changes, a lot of different looks. Alex Morgan not starting, then coming in, and Kristen Press dropping back into Carly Lloyd's spot. Yeah. You're trying a lot of different stuff, so it makes sense. I think it's just that last-minute equalizer combined with the Howler makes it a little bit of a different narrative. I'm
sorry, there's one thing I forgot, and that's what leads to that final free kick, the equaliser. It's the Kelly O'Hara foul on, I think it's Clavijo. Clavijo's doing a couple of rollovers, and O'Hara just sort of charges in there and cleans her out. Yeah. It's not a clever free kick to give away in the 89th, 90th minute.
Not ideal, no. Also not great that both Kelly O'Hara and Megan Rapinoe reacted as though, like, what? No, I didn't do anything. Like, that's Mallory a terrible call. It was
Mallory Pugh at that point.
No, I'm talking about Megan Rapinoe for the first foul. Both she and Kelly O'Hara reacted as though it was like, I have never done... How could you call that a foul? And it's like, that was a foul. You body checked her and you took her legs out, respectively.
But to the positives. So should we start with the first equaliser?
Sure.
So it is scored by Crystal Dunn. There's a ball down the middle for Kristen Press gets... I want to say the best pass of this entire game.
Yeah, I think so.
The ball's coming towards her, and it's, I believe, one touch, in step. It's like a turn, volley, pass directly into the path of Carly Lloyd to go one-on-one with the keeper. Yeah. It is a little bit of perfection.
It is. And then it's shot from Carly Lloyd, rebounds to Mallory Pugh.
Lands, Crystal Dunn comes charging in.
And it is absolutely a credit to Crystal Dunn because we've talked in tournaments past about how we have the Press Guten Tag, the opposite of, or like the the equivalent of the Muller Hello, where she just pops up and finds space and scores. In this situation, Press was actually kind of near the top of the box, hovering in case it spills out, and it was Crystal Dunn.
She wasn't just admiring her own pass, but that is the best pass I've ever seen.
She, you could understand why she would, but it's a credit to Crystal Dunn who runs in from the right-hand side and ends up on the left finishing it. It's good awareness, for sure.
Double credit because that ball could have gone to Crystal Dunn, and I think Carly Lloyd pulls rank. It's almost like she points at her armband and is like, nope, I'm getting on the end of this. So I can see in that situation many players might be like, all right, but instead she's immediately ready for the next ball, the second ball, and that quick thinking and sort of determination and willingness to sort of keep the move going is what leads to her being sort of at the top of the 6-yard box, ready to hit that with the outside of her foot.
Yep. And it's, I enjoy the fact that we go back to the Costa Rica, the final friendly send-off game, and we talked about how we wanted to see Mallory Pugh on the left and Crystal Dunn on the right. We've got that after the 33rd minute or so, and it worked well because you got the Crystal Dunn goal for the first.
They did some switching around as well.
They did. There's a lot of rotation in there. Crystal Dunn with the first, Mallory Pugh with the second.
Can we talk about that Mallory Pugh goal?
We absolutely can.
So, she comes on in, the 31st minute?
33rd, I believe.
33rd minute. And she scores the go-ahead goal in the second half, right? It is... This goal starts with Mallory Pugh, 18-year-old, pulling rank on Ali Krieger, veteran.
Yep.
Do you notice this?
Yes.
So Pugh has a throw in. Krieger's standing right next to her, as close as you are to me. And Pugh waves her backwards, says, no, you back off and I'll throw it to you. And I know that that's not a weird thing, but for a newcomer and such a young player to have the confidence to be telling other players where to be positionally, I kind of like it.
Right.
I kind of like it.
We saw that a few times from her in this game where she was not afraid to yell at people, encourage people to press, getting people motivated, getting in people's face.
After she scores the goal,
she had some words.
She did. I think we talked about this. You didn't spot this, did you? And I'm shocked because normally you are chief lip reader on the Total Soccer Show. Mallory Pugh says something. I hope her parents weren't watching. Let's put it that way.
I'll tell you why I wasn't watching that is because I was too busy trying to catalog the sequence of events that led to the goal for Mallory Pugh.
Okay.
Because so it goes out wide to the left. It's a cross that comes in. Pugh eventually collects it.
Yeah. She Crystal Dunn cross from the left, by the way.
Right. Pugh collects, shoots, she hits Kristen Press, she collects again.
It's a good block
She
from
dribbles.
Press.
She dribbles further to create separation, and then she shoots. And that's all in about 3 seconds, I'd say. It's a lot of things to do in a very short time period, and she does them all quite well.
She's super determined. As she sort of travels quickly laterally across the box, she's just keeps creating separation, keeps waiting for the optimal time to shoot, finds it.
And it's such a smart thing to do for such a young player because she probably could have shot, like we talked about creating that extra bit of separation when she dribbles kind of towards the penalty spot.
Yeah.
And she absolutely could have shot before that. But she has defenders running back and getting on the line and trying to block that off. And it's what veteran players do is they keep dribbling to create that space, but also to make that player overcommit. Because if you're the defender who's sprinted back to cut off that angle, now you've sprinted and then she takes a touch and now you're way out of position. There's no way you can correct yourself and there's no way you can cover. And that's exactly what happens. They can't get into the right shape and she ends up shooting home.
Do you know she's also massively unmarked for the very beginning of this goal? I think the US have done a good job because it starts on the right, with Krieger and Pugh. The ball gets swung all the way out to the left against this tight defence. And then it comes in. And I think there's this thing of when you're a team that's sort of dominating a game like the US and the opposition is sort of all sitting back, this is a Pep Guardiola thing, right? If you just work the ball left to right to open them up and get someone free, it's exactly what the US did here. They worked it to the left, then it came back to the right, and Pugh was open.
It's 3 games in a row that they've done that, where they've worked it to one side and then left the person on the other side, and they're unmarked and relatively wide open. And then they can make a goal out of it. Speaking of,
1 minute after Pugh scores this goal, this game should have been dead and buried.
Okay, for which reason? Because, I guess you're right, 1 minute after that, but there were other moments that maybe it should have been dead and buried first.
But there was absolutely the US on the front foot, 2-1 up, and then Pugh does another sort of burst through that. She was just basically too quick, goes straight through the middle of Colombian defence. She draws a defender, I think it's literally a 3-on-1. She puts in Press. Press should finish. Instead, Press gives it back to Pugh, who finishes, but Pugh's offside.
Right.
And I think there are weirdly all kinds of things wrong here.
She's been watching too much Jordan Morris, that's all. She just wanted to do the FIFA assist that Morris did for Dempsey, only in this situation, Pugh's offside.
Yep.
Which is, disappointing. And it's especially disappointing because, there was the talking point about how Alex Morgan, when she was recovering from injury, one of the things that she did to sharpen her game was watch Kristen Press and the way Kristen Press finishes and has that clinical finishing ability. And that was the second time that we saw her second time she didn't take one. The first time she has that breakaway that she doesn't finish.
She tries to lob the keeper.
Right, and you kind of expect her to finish at least one of those. And so I guess I was a little bit disappointed that she didn't try to take those. And I guess it is that kind of double-edged sword because if she had squared it, Mallory Pugh's onside, then it's really unselfish and it's great team play. But because Pugh's offside, Press then doesn't get the goal, and it's kind of a critical moment. It's
also partly Pugh's fault, maybe 50% Pugh's fault, and a reminder that she is only 18 and very inexperienced, and that part of having experience is not being too overly enthusiastic and running offside, and you think you're just going to run away with it, right?
Yeah.
I think a more experienced player is smart enough to hold the line after you've made that pass.
Yep. Yeah, I think so. And I think that that's something that obviously she will be working on for the next couple of days in training. And so
I'm sure Julius will have a word about it.
Our knockout round against Sweden.
So let's talk about this then. So the US finishes top of their group, right? It's worth remembering in the aftermath of it feeling like a defeat to tie Colombia 2-2, right? They play the third place team, Sweden. US versus Sweden. It means Jill Ellis versus Pia Sundhage once again. This quarterfinal is Friday. Kickoff is noon Eastern. It is on NBC Sports.
All of the things that you are saying are accurate. That's what I'm here for, big guy.
So we'll be back. I think we're going to try and do this soon after that game finishes, we'll have a review show out of that game.
Yeah, we won't make you wait all weekend. Don't worry.
Yeah, well, then there's the Premier League after that, right?
Also a good point, yes.
So how about a quick look at Sweden then?
Let's do it.
Who we're up against. I'll tell you this, they have not been impressive so far.
Not so much. No.
Here's their record. They beat South Africa 1-0 with a really scrambly goal from Nia Fischer, right? They were sort of very fortunate to get the scrambly goal. Second game, they lose 5-1 to Brazil. It is an absolute demolition.
Yep.
I think Sweden's goal in the 5-1 is even super, super late. It's almost the dictionary definition, the Swedish dictionary definition of consolation goal.
Or garbage time, depending on which way you want to go. Yep.
And then I think they needed... China and Sweden both needed a draw to go through to the quarterfinals. So guess what? They tied 0-0.
Yeah. And I think, and then if you're wondering, like from the perspective of like, well, why would Sweden be okay with drawing and going through in third place? Wouldn't they want to win and make sure that they don't have to face the USA? You might make the argument like Pia Sundhage faced the USA before, coached the USA before, so maybe she has this idea that she can be a little bit more confident and get her team a little bit more up for it than she could against another like less familiar opponent.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you remember in the World Cup 2015, the first game was against Sweden, and do you remember Pia Sundhage throwing some shade?
No.
Talking about how players are underperforming and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yes. Okay,
right?
yes.
And I'm wondering if there'll be any more like weird psychological tricks going on in the build-up to this game.
You would think she would have learned her lesson, given the way that tournament went for both teams. But you never know. I mean, games are games. Mental games are mental games.
There's also, when I think about this, the way that the US play now is very different to when Sundhage coached, right? When Sundhage coached, it was a lot more direct and Abby Wambach-ish.
Yeah.
Now it's a lot more patient and possession based, and I do wonder if that thing, if she used to be the coach, is even an advantage anymore, because it's been a few years since she was the coach now.
Well, here's my response to that, is that I don't necessarily agree with what you just said, because I think in this Colombia game, the United States aren't used to being down 1-0. They're not used to being in that sort of pressure position, especially when they're approaching this game with like, whatever, like, and I know that's not really what you ever do.
The Colombia game,
in an Olympic game, but I mean, you don't necessarily have to win it. You need a draw. You're playing against Colombia, who've gotten smashed in this tournament already, so maybe you're less concerned about it. And I felt like once the United States started to panic, you did see a lot of long balls. That press breakaway that we talked about, that comes about from just a long ball from the center backs because they don't know what else to do. And it did seem like the United States was doing a lot of long balls when they were really trying to create something and feeling that pressure. And I do wonder if Pia Sundhage can emphasize that for her Sweden team, really try to go at the U.S., put them under pressure, and force them into playing that long ball. Because I do think they kind of revert to that under certain circumstances.
And that's the thing, if they do go long, you've got Nila Fischer to deal with. She's number 5. You'll recognise her. She's got shortish, platinum blonde hair, number 5. She's been around this team for a long time. She will be winning balls if they're played long. So yeah, maybe there is that.
Yes. All of that is to say, though, that I still am supremely confident in, number 1, Jill Ellis' ability to get it right, to get her lineup right, to get her formation right, and her approach to the game right, and in the U.S.'s ability to find a way to win. Because I think this women's team is one of the best teams there is in terms of getting the result when it needs to happen.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what, I watched highlights. It's very hard to find women's Olympic soccer highlights, by the way. YouTube is an absolute nightmare at the moment. It is mostly people labelling it as... Literally, they would label it Brazil 5, Sweden 1, Olympic soccer, and then it's them playing Pro Evo.
I don't know if you know this or not, but Dante actually came back from the dead, added a new circle to hell, and it's for people who falsely label YouTube videos. Because there's people who will label things as the game. When you click on it, it's their recreation of the game on FIFA.
Yeah, that's what I witnessed,
Yeah, those are unacceptable.
Or the ones that are just like an arrow, says click the link at the bottom for a definitely not dodgy website where you can watch this game.
Right, with 8 different pop-ups that are going to do terrible, terrible things to your computer.
And a bit of advice, do not do that ever.
It's a thing... on multiple occasions, I have been like, one downvote isn't enough. Like, I need to find a way. To find you and condemn you to, like, we'll call it the 9.5 circle of hell.
9.5 circle of hell.
Mislabeling YouTube videos.
I did manage to find one video, though. It took a lot of searching, and I'm going to pat myself on the back for finding it, of highlights of Brazil versus Sweden. Here's what I saw. I saw a Sweden team playing a very weird, or I'm going to say ill-advised, 4-3-3, right? And then they had a compact back four with Nila Fischer at the centre of it, 3 central midfielders, and then essentially 3 forwards who didn't seem to come back effectively. So what it meant was Brazil could come down the wings and have room to then cut inside and go at the Swedish defence from like a diagonal angle. but obviously very effectively because it ended 5-1.
Right. So,
and that suits the US. If you think about that being Tobin Heath or Mallory Pugh or Crystal Dunn, that really suits the US.
Unless they adjust. And
yeah.
So that's always the weird conundrum of knockout round games and like tournaments where you have this many fixtures in a condensed time period.
Yeah.
You never quite know if they're just going to persist in this is what we practice, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to keep it narrow, and hopefully they won't be able to capitalize. Or do they switch it up completely and go 5 in the midfield and really spread them wide and block passing lanes and channels and force the United States to really go long? It could be either one. And I really don't know what to say other than to say that, again, I'm confident in Jill Ellis's ability to figure it out.
One final thing I want to put out there then, just as a preview, Lotta Schelin, number 8 for Sweden. I believe she's the captain. Look out for her. She is fast, she is technical, and she is smart. Tobin Heath calls her world class.
Uh-oh.
Tobin Heath says, this is a player that I look at and I think she's world class. She makes really clever runs behind defences based on what I've saw, and she finishes with more composure than I've seen, I want to say, any other striker. Again, it's highlights, right? So she scores every time in the highlights.
Yeah.
But she looks very good doing it.
She's very good in highlights.
Yeah, so
she's
number
world
10,
class.
number 10, Lotta Schelin.
So
keep an eye out.
What we should hope for is...
number 8.
What we should hope for is Jill Ellis plays Tobin Heath and they get into like a weird freestyle competition and she gets distracted. It's a decoy tactic so that Sweden just like move the ball into her so she can try to beat Tobin Heath one-on-one, but that allows the United States to then establish its game plan.
Don't you think soccer should be allowed to be settled like that? You know, sometimes there's a war and they'll just be like, okay, well, we're just going to have a one-on-one battle instead then.
I feel like there's a very, very good chance that you are referencing Troy, that movie, and Game of Thrones, and that is informing your idea of having the challenger who fights for the whole army.
I wasn't thinking of anything specific, but yeah, the battle of the illegitimates is that is proposed, right?
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be good if there was just someone you could have a freestyle competition instead of, and everybody had to agree to it, but then you decide, all right, yeah, whoever wins this goes through.
Maybe I think so. Maybe that's what overtime should be instead of. Like what we've talked about, where it gets a little bit dull, those 2 15-minute halves, maybe it just becomes like best freestyler wins. Do some skills.
Well, maybe I'm just thinking that because I have confidence in the US with Tobinho, we'd probably win.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So should we very briefly talk lineups?
Sure.
Because I know you've got to get back to moving your house. I've got a meeting coming up in 35 minutes.
Yep.
I'm really amazed we've got this show in, so well done to us.
Can I just say that this is another instance in which your Englishness has rubbed off on me because I keep saying I'm moving house, and I just keep getting weird looks from people and comments on Facebook
What should
of like,
you be saying?
I think we are moving, and you just leave it at that. But to say we're moving house, it does have this connotation of like we're lifting it up, foundation and all, we're moving it to a new place and popping it down. So I keep saying that and keep getting strange looks. And then I realize, oh, that's that little bit of Englishness that's rubbed off.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
What were we talking about? US lineup. So for this game against Sweden, how about if I just run through what I think and you disagree where you disagree?
Sure.
I'm going to assume Hope Solo in goal, right?
Yep.
No question. I think it goes back to O'Hara at right back. Megan Klingenberg at left back. We didn't mention that she was rested. That is actually huge. I apologise for the previous 30 minutes of this podcast where we didn't mention that Megan Klingenberg was missing.
Yep.
She's so important to the United States.
Yep.
Becky Sauerbrunn, partnered by, I believe, Julie Johnston.
Agreed.
She's had 2 games off. She's rested that sore groin. She should be good to go for the knockout round.
My only little asterisk with that one is that we've seen it in tournaments past where teams keep a lid on how injured a player is because they don't want other teams to like get used to that and be like, oh, we don't need to worry about her.
Yeah.
And there could be, if we don't see her in this knockout round, then I think her injury is way worse than we know it to be.
Yeah.
But with all that said, I think you're right that we will see her partnering Becky Sauerbrunn, and I think it's the smart decision.
Okay. Then, in front of that defence, I think Morgan Bryan and Ali Long.
Yep.
I think Jill Ellis is big on Ali Long.
Who was also rested in this game.
She played 30 minutes or so, right?
Yep.
She played the last few. But yeah, I think Lindsay Horan did nothing wrong. She had that great shot from distance. She also had one good header. But I still think the preferred partnership is Long for the defensive skills and Morgan Bryan.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Carly Lloyd on the bench, obviously.
Carly Lloyd ahead of them.
Yep.
Alex Morgan ahead of her. So that's your middle. The question is out wide, right?
Yep.
Tobin Heath on the left has to be, right?
I think
Tobin
so.
Heath was rested against Colombia because she's so important. Tobinho on the left. On the right, I think Crystal Dunn to start.
I think it will be. I think it will be, and I think Mallory Pugh did a lot to justify her selection, her inclusion.
Yeah.
But we've seen her struggle on that right-hand side. Tobin Heath struggles on that
Well,
right-hand side.
she scored from the right-hand side this time.
This is true, but generally we've seen her struggle there. Tobin Heath struggles from that side as well.
Yeah.
And I think if you have to choose, you put Tobin Heath on the left, you play Crystal Dunn on the right, where she seems more confident and comfortable.
Yeah.
Then you have Pugh and potentially Rapinoe as substitutes when you need that impact later on.
I think that's true. And you have two options then on the bench. You have the raw pace and directness and goal-scoring threat of Mallory Pugh is like one option.
And
like
sweariness.
And sweariness, yeah. If you want that coming off the bench. And then with Rapinoe, you've obviously got the delivery. Right? Delivery from the left. You've got that option as well. So you can just decide what you want in the moment.
Yes. This all makes sense to me.
We could be wrong. It could be Pugh or Rapinoe could start this game. But I think Tobin Heath starts this game.
Yes, I think so too.
Okay. Any other comments or questions before we wrap this up and you go back to moving house?
Other than just to say, you mean moving? Other than just to say that I appreciate your patience as I've been moving this week. It's been a little bit hectic. But also with that has come a plan to get back on schedule next week. So doing the scouting reports regularly, answering listener questions, that's all set for next week. It's just been a little bit chaotic this week.
We got it done.
I think we did, yeah.
You also know it's only Thursday, right? So there'll be another show tomorrow.
Honestly, I'm really struggling with what day it is. And especially because the Olympics are happening, there's sports every day. It's been that kind of a summer where it's like, is it Wednesday? Is it Friday? I don't even know anymore. Days mean nothing.
I can confirm today is Thursday. Tomorrow is Friday.
You sure?
It's the game against Sweden. US Women versus Sweden is Friday, noon, NBC Sports. We're going to watch it. We're going to review it. We'll have that show to you, I'd say, before 5 or 6 p.m. Eastern, right? We'll have a review of that game for Total Soccer Show listeners.
And then Saturday evening, we have the Richmond Kickers versus FC Cincinnati here at
do.
City Stadium. The Kickers on a run. And all I have to say to you Cincinnati listeners out there is Skyline Chili is bad. Shots fired.
Can you do that? So,
except it's not. It's actually really delicious, and I ate it all the time in college.
Before we finish recording the show, we received a package from Brian Weigel of FC Cincinnati. Is it Cincinnati Soccer Talk podcast? Thank you to Brian. We haven't opened it yet. I think as soon as we finish recording, I'm going to open that up like it's Christmas Day and see what's in
it.
It
is sitting on the couch staring at us, which is part of the reason why I decided to throw shade in Cincinnati's direction.
So thank you to Brian. Thank you, listeners, for listening. Thank you, Taylor Rockwell, for taking the time, literally, for taking the time to talk to me today.
Same to you, my friend.
All right, we'll be back on Friday, and we look forward to talking to you then.